So over 50% of couples today meet online. That cute girl you saw at the coffee shop this morning, she's probably on a dating app right now. You see, online dating isn't optional anymore. It's a modern man's arena. It's where first impressions are made, attraction is built, and relationships begin. And as somebody who has mastered this game and coached hundreds of men through it, from divorced professionals to busy entrepreneurs, I can tell you this. Once you understand the mechanics behind online attraction, it becomes predictable. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the 10 laws of online dating, the same principles I teach inside the Romeo Effect to help you stand out, attract genuine interest, and separate yourself from the average man who is still guessing his way through this online dating landscape. Now, the first few laws are what I call foundational laws. And speaking about separating yourself from the average man, law number 1 simply comes down to having what I call the top 10% mentality, meaning that everything we do, everything we craft, how we look, how we present ourselves needs to be that of a top 10% man. And so I've noticed what a lot of guys try to do in terms of online dating is that they seek these other sources, or maybe they see what their friends are doing or what their community is doing or whoever, right? But they don't realize those men are invisible. Unless you know somebody who is absolutely killing it, which based on statistics, you likely don't, you do not need to follow their advice. Because we have seen the stats, it's usually the top 10% of men who are having the most visibility on online dating. And that doesn't just include dating apps, I'm talking about Instagram and everything else. So when it comes to your style, your presentation, how you craft your profile, ask yourself this one question. Would the average guy do this? Or am I separating myself apart? Am I doing something different? Because I'll tell you this, if everybody's doing the same thing, that's probably a sign you should not be doing it. Now, obviously, if you are subscribed to this channel, I am teaching you what the top 10% of men do, but overall, that is the first foundational law we have to keep in mind. Now, law number 2 is maintaining mystery. You see, when it comes to dating apps, we actually don't want to reveal too much about ourselves on the front end. We need to have an element of intrigue. And you might think, Austin, well, wouldn't that mean that I'm not really showcasing my best self or not enough about myself so I get disqualified? No, that's not the case whatsoever. In fact, when you have more mystery on the front end of your profile, you do something of what I call casting a wide net. And that's essentially what we have to do in order to get the matches that we want. We have to cast a wide net by not disqualifying ourselves on the front end. And through that, that's when we filter through the messages or through whatever else. So when it comes to your profile, for example, we don't need to have a descriptive bio. We don't need to put our political or religious affiliations. We do not need to mention that we have kids if we do. We need to have the bare bones in which somebody can get a glimpse of our life or how we look. But outside of that, everything else needs to be discussed either through the messages or on the first date in itself. And whenever you set up your dating app profiles, a lot of these apps will try to get you to explain as much about yourself as possible. But once again, this is what the average guy is doing. If you're a digital Romeo, if you know what you're doing, you maintain mystery on the front end. Now let's move on to law number 3, another foundational law, and that is emotion over logic. Women are emotional creatures. They respond not through logic and through facts, they respond through emotion, how they feel. In fact, whether or not a woman will meet up with you really comes down to how she feels. How she feels on Tuesday is sometimes not the same way how she feels on a Wednesday. So with that being said, when it comes to our dating profiles, we craft our image and our profile literally like a marketing campaign towards women. And since we understand the female psychology of emotion, we craft things that spark more so positive emotion from the woman. So when she looks at your pictures, when she looks at your profile, when she looks at your prompts, when she looks at your bio, she feels something. When she messages you or when you message her, she feels something. It's not boring, it's not logical. And you know, I work with a lot of software engineers, a lot of tech guys, computer engineers, guys who are very data driven. And that's one huge flaw I've noticed through working with these men is that they're just insanely logical, and it's really hard to flip that sort of emotional switch. It takes practice, and this is something that we help all of our guys with. But once you understand the female psychology of emotion and you start crafting every element to a degree of sparking intrigue and emotion and thinking about how they feel when you message you, that will make your dating life so much better. And this is not just with women you're attracting on the front end, but even women you continue to see. Now let's move on to what I call the engagement laws. So starting off with law number 4, that is to wait 24 hours before messaging a match. Listen, the reason why we do this and the reason why I preach to do this is because you want to give the woman a chance to message you first. In fact, one of the biggest things I've discovered through online dating is that if I can do everything in my power to allow the woman to message me first, or to at least get her to message me first, I've noticed I had a 20 to 30% higher likely chance of actually getting that woman out on a date. And what was I doing before? I was sending the message time I would get the match. I wasn't letting it simmer for a little bit. And through that, I just wasn't giving her the opportunity to sort of set that frame and to basically chase me. I know it sounds backwards, but that's essentially what the Romeo effect is about. Setting ourselves in such a position in which women start chasing us. And so at the least, like I said, 24 hours, but to be honest, it can be up to 48 hours even. And you'll be surprised. There's been chances in which I matched with a woman and I didn't say nothing for like 5 days. And then they end up messaging me after they went through their own matches. You know, if you want to take this to a big extreme, what I would do is I wouldn't respond to any match for about 6 days. And I'll take 1 day out the week to respond to everybody who I found attractive and who obviously also didn't open me first. So that's just a law number 4. Also a little quick pro tip that you can definitely implement to get more genuine desire and to set frame early on. Now let's move on to law number 5, and that is we need to create what I call magnetic triggers that make women reach out. As I mentioned before, we do this through sparking emotion. And so when it comes to your profile setup, we got the 3 pillars of presentation: pictures, prompts, and bio. The prompts are going to be the biggest thing we need to do in terms of magnetic triggers that will make women reach out. And so treat it like an ad. Like if you ever run a business, or if you're an entrepreneur yourself, when you run an ad, it's for some sort of result. That result can be to click the link. That result can be to message us in the DMs, whatever it may be. When we set up our dating profiles, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to set up the marketing campaign or the ad with the result of getting women to message us first through sparking emotion. I do this through prompts. Now, in the Romeo effect, we'll give you a copy paste list of 100 prompts that you can use. And we also have a AI coach that can actually generate custom prompts that are geared and aligned towards you. This is only for clients right now, but I encourage you to take a look at your prompts right now. If they're insanely logical or too descriptive about yourself, we just need to change it. Ask yourself and put yourself in the woman's shoes. If I was a woman seeing this profile, would I be encouraged to engage with this prompt? Would I be encouraged to engage with this bio? Does it spark a degree of curiosity or intrigue? Would I be engaged to even engage with this picture? If you can't confidently say yes to that, then that means that we need something to change. Now, as I mentioned, inside the Romeo effect, we call this magnetic triggers. And these are the small cues that will pull women into your world before you even send a text. Now, if you do want to learn more about the Romeo effect and how it can completely change your dating life, completely change your style, completely transform your looks, completely change the type of woman you're attracting online, then check out the link down below. I created a free presentation going over exactly how this full process works. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now, let's move on to law number 6, and that is we need to read interest levels like a funnel. I made a video going over this a few months ago. However, women are categorized in 3 different interest levels: high, medium, low. High obviously is what we want to focus on and attract the most, and that's exactly what we do inside the Romeo effect. And this is the highest level of genuine desire. They're reaching out to you, they're making themselves available fast, they're responding on time, etc. However, if you're an average guy watching this, for the most part, you're either attracting medium or low and you don't even know it. Medium interest women, they're not going to reach out to you first. They will reply. They might set rules around setting a date. They might not have logistics immediately on hand to you. You know, they're interested, but it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're very volatile. You know, if you say something wrong, then you're getting ghosted. If you keep up the interaction pretty good and you lead, then, you know, if you catch her at the right time, she'll go out with you, but it's very, very risky. Medium interest women are that middle ground in which it can be quite annoying because it's so volatile, but at the same time, unfortunately, most guys who aren't set up in the right way are going to attract just medium interest women, but you have to be able to identify that and then categorize these women very, very fast so that you know who to prioritize at the back end of the funnel. And what I always say is that we prioritize interest levels over attraction. And so if you have a woman who you perceive to be an 8 out of 10, but her interest levels are like medium to low, but you got a 6.5 who has high interest, who should we prioritize in our funnel? That's right, it goes down to interest levels. We should definitely prioritize interest levels because that woman's gonna treat you better. That woman's gonna show up on time. That woman's gonna give you value in some sort of way. And truth be told, not to get too graphic, but if we're talking about sexual experiences here, I've had the best sexual experiences with high interest women who weren't like super hot versus the really hot women who I'd been with, like the 9s, 10s, even 8.5s in some cases. More so, I had not the best experience when it comes to sexual stuff and even just conversation on the date. The stereotypes are true. The more attractive she is, honestly, the less personality they tend to have. I'm not saying every woman's like this, but overall, it's definitely something that I personally noticed. So definitely start reading interest levels like a pro so that you know who to prioritize. Now let's move on to law number 7, and this is that we need to disqualify attention seekers early on. Listen, doesn't matter what dating strategy you use, online dating, cold approach, social circle, warm approach, clubs, bars, doesn't matter. You're inevitably going to come across women who just want your attention and aren't genuinely attracted to you or interested in you. And even in some cases with high interest women, believe it or not. And so we need to be able to, once again, identify who is attention seeking. Usually it comes down to they're delaying setting up the date, they're continuing to converse with you, but it's not leading anywhere, or they essentially put you in their funnel. So they say, oh, follow me on Snapchat or follow me on Instagram, but they never reach out, you guys never talk. That is a woman trying to get you into her world, trying to get you to be what I call an orbiter. We as high value men are not orbiters. So what we do, we ignore those women and we disqualify. We stop messaging. We unfollow, we stop giving attention, because we all know that the women value attention more so than anything else. And when you feed that to them for the free, then they start to respect you less. So that being said, any woman who I see is an attention seeker, which might be anywhere from like 10 to 20% of women who you meet online, immediately disqualified. They're out of the funnel. All right, now let's move on to what I call conversion laws, starting off with law number 8. And that is we need to move her off the app as fast as possible. You see, dating apps are what I call low trust environments. You're disposable, you're just another guy. They're having anywhere between 8 to 15 active conversations at any given moment. So whenever you move her off the app, let's say within 3 to 5 messages, you've established a little bit of rapport, you've seen her interest levels, you know she's into you. When you move her off the app, you then showcase yourself in a higher value way and you become more of a real person. Now, me, in terms of my dating funnel and what we teach on the Romeo Effect, we definitely love Instagram. Instagram. I know you can definitely do the number 2, but with Instagram, that's now a high trust environment. They can see your social life. They can see what you're into, your hobbies or whatnot. They can see your social proof. But this is why using the Romeo Effect, we value Instagram so much and we actually prioritize that in terms of our dating funnel, because we have noticed for the most part a lot higher conversion versus just staying on the app or even sometimes going to number. So any conversation you're having on the dating app, just try to get them to another part of the funnel as quickly as possible. Time she shows some degree of interest and you made a little bit of small talk, get her off the app. I like to use a compliance test. Hey, send me a message on this location. If they're into you, if they're high interest, they would definitely do that. However, medium interest women might not follow through with the compliance test. More so, you'll have to get their number or their Instagram. Then from there, you send them a message. Law number 9, your bio is your billboard, not your resume. Once again, this comes down to the mystery that we show on the front end. A lot of guys treat their bio as a resume, an autobiography. I like to do this, I'm looking for this, I love this, and it just keeps going. That's not what we want to do. But at the same time, we don't want to have nothing or have it way too short. It needs to have some degree of what I call demonstrating a higher value about yourself through a few adjectives or maybe some nouns, describing your life in a very, very short way and high value way, and it should be status coded alongside with some sort of call to action. Remember, this is a marketing campaign and that's how we're treating it. So the bio might say something like fitness, travel, adventure. I know the best coffee spots in town, message me and I'll tell you one. Something simple like that. And this can be curated or different depending on your hobbies or what you like to do, or maybe your area. And with our digital Romeo AI coach, we actually have a bio generator in which it can generate everything I just said in the right format that's actually tied to you, your age, your interests, so on and so forth. So just remember with the bio, just don't keep it long, all right? Now, lastly, law number 10 is that we need to audit, don't guess. You see, most guys have no idea what's working in terms of their funnel, their messaging, their pictures, their prompts. They don't know anything. And so you're kind of just throwing shit at the wall. You see, given that I come from a data-driven background, computer science background, I nerd out about statistics. And so I found that whenever we start tracking data, which all my clients are required to track their data, I've noticed that we can actually reverse engineer what's working or what's not, and we can find the flaws and the holes in the system. So for example, if your match rate is bad, which means that you're swiping a lot, but you're not getting a lot of matches back, obviously that's a presentation issue. If your conversion is bad towards middle of the funnel, let's say you had 15 conversations, only one of them went through middle of the funnel. Okay, messaging is bad, or maybe the interest levels are bad there. Even with date conversions, right? How many of those first dates are actually converting into second and third dates? Most people, unless you're super advanced, like myself, you're gonna have flaws within your funnel. And I encourage you to actually track this, take note, see where your weaknesses and your flaws are, because once you understand that, that's how you're gonna know where to fix and where your weaknesses may be. And sometimes this takes volume, right? Which is also why we need to ensure that we're having multiple matches per week, at least 25 to 50 per platform, and ideally going on at least 2 dates a week. That amount of volume will actually give us the right amount of data so that we know exactly what's working or what's not working. So guys, here's the truth, and that is online dating is not luck, it's pretty much leverage. And once you understand these laws, attraction becomes more predictable. You know how to create intrigue, filter attention seekers, and build a funnel that brings women to you. And once again, that's exactly why I created the Romeo effect, to give you a system that transforms your dating life permanently. So if you are interested, click the link down below to see how this process works in full to transform your dating life for the better, put it completely on autopilot, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace.